And we are live. Yeah, this is Bill Brock, and you're watching Operation Lockdown Videocast. Basically, we're all locked down in the house, so I figured it'd be really cool to talk to some interesting people and hopefully entertain you at the same time. Today, I have Carl Johnson on board. Carl is a good friend of mine. He's also a demonologist, a writer, and a public speaker. I mean, he pretty much can do anything you ask him to. He's pretty darn talented. And so anyway, Carl, how are you doing, buddy?
Hi, Bill. I'm pretty good in lockdown, relative lockdown. I've been cheating a little bit, but you know.
Yeah.
When you're confined to the state of Rhode Island, you don't really do too much or go too far.
True. So, to me, you are most known for one thing, and I really want to talk about that today, and that's your association with the Conjuring House. You were actually one of the first people to investigate that location, right?
Yes, I was of our team and of any paranormal investigator, I was the first one in the door.
Nice. Literally, so I want to tell people how this happened, man. So so back in the 70s, you were part of a group?
Yeah, I was old enough to not to vote, but to be part of a paranormal group. Yes. Yeah. I was a member of a group that was based at Rhode Island College in Providence, and PIRO was the name of our team. Parapsychology Investigatory and Research Organization. So it's a PIRO. And we had been doing outdoors, exploratory missions, going to different sites around Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Connecticut. And we wanted to branch out into residential cases, residential investigations. To that purpose, my brother placed an ad in a local paper, the Observer North County edition, and he advertised our group, letting it be known that we were a paranormal group that's going to investigate. Everybody was saying parapsychology back then. And 3 weeks later to the day after my brother placed that ad and it was published, we received a greeting from Carolyn Perrin. She and her husband had purchased a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and they had some strange activity there. Our team was invited to come and probe and investigate. So we did that. This is before GPS, of course. Harrisville was out there. And so it took us a while to find the residents. And then we pulled up into the driveway, and I had this ominous feeling. As soon as my spider sense was tingling, as soon as we pulled up into that driveway, something's up here. I just know it. I don't feel that every place. I feel it here. And the lady who greeted me at the house was Carolyn Perrin, slender, attractive lady. And she was a little apprehensive because we were this paranormal group coming in, and we're going to confirm their house is haunted and all what kind of thing is there. So I made a joke about asking directions. I said, I stopped and had to ask a guy at a cemetery where this house is. And he was helpful, but I turned around, he was gone, so I couldn't ask him anything more. She cracked up laughing right at that. That broke the ice. So they knew we were okay people. We went into the house and began our investigative procedure. It starts off with an interview, and the director, the case manager of PIRO, was asking Carolyn questions, and the daughters. Oh, I got to tell, when they first saw my brother, my twin brother Keith, then he was slender, had long, light blonde hair parted in the middle, and he was wearing a white muslin shirt, carrying a Bible. So one of the daughters, the parent daughters, Nancy, looks out the window, sees Keith there, and she says, "Mom, Jesus is here." So we were hit right away. The girls liked Keith. They took Keith by the hands and brought him down to the pond. And so the case manager and I are conducting the interview. Keith came back in. And while we were speaking to Carolyn, Roger wasn't there at the time, I believe, Roger, the first visit. I think he showed up later that day. And I heard moving around upstairs where the girls' bedrooms were. And I had to ask, I said, "Excuse me, do you have company upstairs? I'm hearing some noise up there." And the girls and Carolyn said, "No, we hear that almost every day." So the interview resumed, and I backed away and I made my way up the stairs, and I'm looking around up there. Yeah, we heard noises, but I don't see anybody up here. They're right. And then out of my peripheral vision, the right side, I saw a blackness, like darkness. So of course I turned, I looked, and I don't know, it was nothing. It was actually nothingness. something rolling down towards me. It was kind of a hallway, separated the bedrooms. And it's coming towards me. The first thing I thought was, there's a fire in the house. There's smoke. I'm waiting to smell smoke. So this blackness came over me, and I reflexively closed my eyes, opened my eyes, it was gone. So I went back downstairs and kind of looked at my brother, gave him that look, like, oh yeah, something's up. Then I was also the first one down to the basement. People were kind of hesitant to go down there. So I said, oh, I'll go down. I didn't bring a flashlight because they had a light bulb on. It was daytime. Single light at that time, hanging bulb, was illuminating the cellar. So I'm down there, and all of a sudden the light goes out. It just, the bulb just failed. So I'm there in what at the time was total darkness. I'm like, oh shit, And, but I could see where the stairwell was, so I made my way out, and it was just an amusing time. What really happened that got my attention, besides seeing that darkness come towards me, I don't know what to call it. We were upstairs in the bedroom, one of the bedrooms, and a window was jammed open. Now, I remember Roger was there for this, so he must have returned at a certain point. And the window was stuck open. I tried to close it. I couldn't. It was strange because this was the middle of August. It was sweltering elsewhere, but in that room, it was like an icebox, very chill. Couldn't explain that. Could not close that window. Roger said, I've tried. I can't get it to close. Okay, my brother tried something. He tried an experiment. Keith recited a psalm from the Bible. And he said the name of Jesus. As soon as he did that, the window slammed shut. We were all there to hear it. And then one of the daughters had, I think it was Judy, she had welts on her face, as if someone had slapped her. So I wouldn't say it was exactly the Amityville horror, but it was active. We were convinced that house is haunted. Still
that's a lot of activity in a really short amount of time.
Over there? Oh, we hit pay dirt. It's a good thing we came back.
Right. And then at that point, somehow the Warrens got involved, correct?
They did indeed, yes. They got involved because we told them about the house. The pyro alerted them.
So you guys were actually the people who alerted them about this haunting, and then they came and investigated it, right?
Well, that's factual. The Warrens would not have known about the Conjuring, what became known as the Conjuring House, were it not for my brother and I and our team. And we thought it would be a nice professional touch for the parents to bring in the Warrens and benefit from their experience. It's not that we felt we were in over our heads. We just thought, no, we know Ed and Lorraine. Let's call them in. I had met them at Rhode Island College the night I was invited to join that group. So I said, well, let's give Ed a call and talk to him, see what they think.
Yeah. So I think this is a good time to kind of tell the story of the Conjuring House itself. So for people who don't know, the Conjuring House is a house that was built in the 1700s. It ended up having a really amazing history. And then in the 70s, it started this crazy paranormal type activity. Fast forward to, I forget what year the film came out, early 2000s, mid 2000s. 2013.
Coinciding with the 40th anniversary of the Warrens investigation there.
Okay. So 2013, the movie The Conjuring came out, and it ended up being, I think, the highest grossing horror film ever. And it was all based on the Conjuring House and the things that happened to the Perron family in that house. And again, Carl Johnson was one of the first, actually the first investigator to ever go check out the Conjuring House. So he has some really cool connections with the house, and it's still going on today, right?
Those things that we saw back then in August 1973 are still happening there. People report the same kind of phenomena that we had there. Books flying off the bookcase, off the shelf.
Right. So after your experience in the Conjuring House, you guys continued to be paranormal investigators? You kept this up?
Yeah, that was pretty much the beginning for us. Well, this all commenced when I met the Warrens in 1972 and became involved with Pyro. And we went on some other cases. Went to Druid Stream in Narragansett. There's ruins of a church on Brown Avenue in Johnston where the church had burned, but people would hear organ music emanating from those ruins. And had some interesting cases. After a while, Pyro lacked the cohesiveness to keep it together and started drifting apart, had some internal problems there. So I left and, explore other things. And my next case, the next residential case I was involved in, turned out to be a case of full-blown demonic possession. That's how we evaluated it. You know? And it actually was not a paranormal team. It was my brother and I investigating that. I was invited.
Were you considered to be a demonologist at this point? Were you familiar with what you were about to experience?
Oh, well, it did take me by surprise. I don't know. You're only as good as your last involvement. And that did take me by surprise because I'd never dealt with such a, classic demonic force before. I became a demonologist when I found my name in a magazine article. Somebody brought it to my attention. Hey, look, you're in this magazine. Because I'd been on a few cases there, and it referred to me as Carl Johnson, the demonologist. And I said, well, okay, sounds nice. I'll be a demonologist. Yeah, okay, yeah. I kind of like it. Somebody said, well, you're not ordained, you're not a minister. How can you be a demonologist? Okay, I won't be a demonologist if you don't want me to be, but I just kind of liked it and stuck. Yes, that's how I became involved with demonology, was with that case of demonic possession. I don't think it was a demonic, insidious influence of conjuring. Definitely haunted, definite paranormal activity. But I believe the house has a personality. I think it's not so much the conjuring house is haunted as it is the haunting. And you've been researching that. We're trying to get to what really caused this and what is generating this activity.
Yeah, definitely. So after your, well, I want to know a little bit more about this demonic possession. What happened there? That's an interesting story.
Yeah, it was a very interesting. So it certainly had my attention at the time. Well, I'll tell you it in basically a nutshell. There was a family residing in the west end of Providence over on Messer Street in the Armory District. And if you're familiar at all with the west end of Providence, a big armory there. And I knew this family. They were Hispanic, Puerto Rican, and Dominican. And they had a problem with the son. The son's name was Lucas. He was 14 years of age then. And Lucas was coming under these fits of what seemed to be another personality overtaking him. I thought perhaps the boy has a brain lesion or epilepsy. But they said, no, he seems to be somebody else when this happens to him. It commenced the year before when Lucas was walking through a cemetery near his home in Providence, and he found a glove lying on the pathway in the cemetery, a woman's glove. He picked it up and brought it home with him. Well, the glove disappeared. But that's when things started. He was being taken over by some invasive personality. And naturally, since he's 14 years of age, I thought it's all psychological. It's a formative time in his life. I was invited to stay the night and observe, because even then, I had a reputation as a paranormal investigator, would stand his ground. And people had heard what I was doing. So I stayed the night, not expecting anything, a little apprehensive. So I was reclining on a couch in the room adjacent to Lucas's bedroom. And it was about 1 a.m. I was dozing off. And suddenly I was awakened by a shrill scream. It sounded like a whistle blowing scream. I got up and fumbled for the wall light switch. And as I turned on that switch, Lucas's bedroom door opened on its own. Here comes this young guy, his body careening, like spinning out of the room, banging into walls. He looked like a dreidel or top. His body was spinning around. You could hear the swish, 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 and he's screaming, as if he was screaming for his life. I stood transfixed. What am I going to do? What was about 20 seconds seemed like a long time. So then Lucas did a backward somersault and ended up on the couch. And he started jumping with the sofa there that I was reclining on. And he jumped up and down, flapping his arms and his hands, and started to, this deep laughter came out of his throat. It almost looked like his gums were receding. It did. He looked ferocious. Then he looked at me with this glare, and he jumped at me. Well, I pushed him down. I was trying to restrain him gently. I was my normal 200 pounds at the time. He pushed me right off him. Then he came to his senses, but he was shaken. He came to himself, I should say. He was shivering and crying, calling for his uncle. So we knew something was genuine. I was thinking, how much of this is happening in this boy's mind and how much is really preternatural? Because of everything that was happening, an expulsion was arranged, which is a form of minor exorcism. It's not the Ritualis Romanus, but it does involve prayer, invocation of holy powers, and driving out the spirit. So that was arranged for about a week later. I think 5 days afterwards, we had this ceremonial expulsion. It happened in the house on the first floor. Oh my word, what an experience. When it started, we were all seated, those participating were seated in a semicircle. For some reason, I was in the center of that semicircle. Right. Then things start. There are prayers being offered. Lucas is sitting by a makeshift altar. And then things really started, and it became eerily silent in the room. The floor shook. That broke the silence. It was like a truck was going by, or an earth tremor. But it was neither of those. The floor just shook. The house groaned. Then it became silent again. My chair with me in it pushed all the way back across the floor. It was propelled by some invisible force. My chair just went back with me in it. It was happening before I realized what was happening. I went back against the wall. Then Lucas fell to the floor, and this other personality took over him. And what an ordeal! What an ordeal for the next maybe 90 minutes. That seemed like it seemed like it was all night, but it was about 90 minutes this was going on. I was there to oversee, and I offered prayers. For some reason, they thought I could help. I think I did. I wanted to leave. I said, "This is not for me." I don't know what I'm dealing with. But I knew if I left, that would not inspire confidence in the people we were trying to help. I was trying to help. My brother was there too, documenting. And well, at one point, I felt this onrush of emotion. I said, "This is not me." I feel like I could give into violence. I feel terror and ferocity at the same time. I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm not any drugs or medication. And it just took over me. I wanted to explode. And
I'm just going to try to wrap my mind around what's going on here. So this young boy,
I'm telling you,
yeah. So this young guy comes out of his bedroom completely possessed by something. Does a bunch of from what you say, a demon. So he comes out and he has all these crazy behaviors, and you're starting to almost become an empath. Almost, it sounds like, to what he's going on or having happened to him. How do you guys eventually help him, or does he ever get help?
He was helped. Well, at that instant, I concentrated on my own sense of self. It went out of me. I felt a tingling in the back of my head, the Mons area, and that force seemed to go into another person, a young woman who was in the next room. As soon as I thought that, you'll get that out of me, she fell to the floor and started pulling at her hair and screaming. So that was, the timing was too much to be coincidence. We kept at it, and eventually this boy was calmed, and it seemed to leave. We demanded a sign. Give us a sign of your departure, this thing unseen. And well, when we said that, a religious picture kind of flew off the wall. Coincidence or not, I don't know. And yeah, they were Catholic. They had religious iconography around. So that picture flew off the wall when we said, "Give us a sign." The window shook, and then it got quiet again. He seemed much better after that. That was almost the last incident this boy had. There was one time about a month later, his parents were driving, in the West End, and he was in the back seat. They drove by a Catholic church, and he started to scream.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was trying to set up my phone so I could take some questions. So I have this up now. So if anyone has questions while we're talking, I can definitely answer them. And looks like there's a bunch of people in here chatting away. So cool.
Involved in that, telling that tale, but that story. But you can't leave anything out.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. It's really interesting. So, have you had other things happen to you in the past that are along the same lines? Have you dealt with demonic possession more than once?
I have, yes. In Edmond, Oklahoma, in 2010. And I was actually there with the team, Oklahoma Paranormal. I was there with Mike Ricksecker. That was when I met Rick. I met Mike Ricksecker. And it involved a family the house was subject to haunted activity. And their daughter was coming under fits of what seemed to be possession. So that had to be dealt with. It had similarities to that first case I was involved with. Yes. So she was being taken over by this personality, and I had to help her with that. And we actually brought it to this was under my direction. I wanted to isolate this whatever was bothering her, demonic or whatever. And it seemed to go out of her. And I said, now we're going to bring it outside. So Mike, I and the team went outside. I said, just concentrate on bringing this with us, because the room's dark. The room got very dark. Let's take it with us, bring it outside to the backyard and get rid of it. Well, this terrific wind picked up. I mean, it was quite a force. It wasn't like, getting windy and then dying down. This just kept accelerating. I said, I don't know if we got some real weather conditions here. What's going on? So I went outside, and the wind became ferocious as I was commanding this thing to leave, whatever it was. I can't say I knew exactly what I was doing, but I had to go with it. I had to take some action. And then we saw what looked like little animals, like monkeys, black things, climbing up the trees.
Wow.
I don't know what it was. I mean, people there can confirm this. It's climbing up the trees, and like squirrels or monkeys, and little critters climbing up the tree, but they weren't bending the branches when they did.
Wow.
So the wind
wow, that's crazy.
Oh,
so,
yeah. What a scene.
I kind of want to get your thoughts on something else. So, like, you've had a lot of experience with demonic possession. It sounds like absolutely more than a couple of times.
Yeah,
so,
a couple of times, yeah.
What do you think demons are that possess people? Like, are they actually demons, or is it something else? And yeah, I just want to know your thoughts about all of that,
Well, I've been a paranormal investigator for 47 years now, and I still don't know what a ghost is or a demon. I have ideas. Classically, a demon is supposed to be a fallen angel that was expelled from heaven during the great conflagration there, the great rebellion led by Satan. And he and his minions, the other rebellious angels, were cast down into the nether regions, and they became demons. Satan, Lucifer, became the devil. I don't know if it's that simple. I think that's actually, I equate that with modern mythology. Yeah, could be truth to it, but I just can't know. I think it actually gets into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, how these things can exist. Responsive chords. They are malevolent. They are real. Demons are real. They're forces. Sometimes they're seen. Generally, they're invisible. They can move things around. We know their criteria on what they do. We don't really know what they are.
So back up here. So demons are able to have like poltergeist activity associated with them?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know if it's just what we would call a poltergeist or if it is demonic, has a real personality to it. Yes, I've seen demonic entities move things around. It's got to be related to the poltergeist phenomenon, I think. They can move things, but they have an agenda, which separates the demon from what we would call a typical ghost. They want evil for us. They don't wish us well. If there are demons that don't hate humans, we never hear from them. But yeah.
Do you think there's a battle of good and evil, going on that we don't see? Because if there's bad demons, there should be some good thing as well.
Yes. It seems to be that way. Yeah, I do believe in angels, but they don't have any real consistency. Why do they show up sometimes? Other times they can't seem to. Some invisible agents, some spirits mean us well, some don't. Whether there's this universal struggle between good and evil, and with humans in the center, I have trouble embracing that concept. I just don't think we're all that important in the great scheme of the universe. Maybe we are. Maybe maybe we are the ones.
Maybe
around us. I think a lot of this stems from our own subconscious. I'm not saying delusional. I mean, actually create this again through quantum physics. That something in our minds generates these forces, or perhaps they're already there and we strike a responsive chord and they come in. Do demons predate the human race? I don't know. I don't think so.
All right. So let me back up again. So you just said that the human mind may be able to create these things, that's actually an experiment that's been done before, and it worked.
Yeah.
So are spirits something that we've created in our own minds that we're able to project out into the universe and become real, or are spirits really what's left of us when we pass? What do you think?
You know, it may sound like a contradiction, but it could be both. Really, it's like an untrue truth. I think we do generate something while we're living beings, and it lasts. And there we get the spirits. We actually imprint in what we could call metaphysically the ether, some substrate or substance around us that is a repository for these energies we expel during life. And these are my theories. These are guesses. You know, I don't know if I should even call them theory, but I think the human mind is capable of creating these things. And again, I'm not saying they're all psychological or delusional. I think they're real, and we have made them. Now, did demonic entities and angels and all that, did they predate the human race? Like I was saying, don't know. It's like, you know, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Yeah, there's an ear to interpret it. It does. So with these things around, I don't think there were demons in the time of the dinosaurs waiting for the great human race to emerge. You know, I think that, you know, a chain of happenstance, really, that brought us about. Now, we are pretty remarkable beings. Now, I'm probably going to lose my demonologist badge for this. But, you know, I'm not buying into that this is all, you know, angels and demons warring over the human race. I could be wrong.
Right.
But I proceed as if there are good and evil forces, because that seems borne out. I just don't know what their origins are. I question that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I guess kind of fast forward in your life a little bit, you ended up being on some TV shows and getting a chance to go to all kinds of really cool places, right?
That was the advantage of it, yes. I've been on some television.
Nice. So what was the first show you did?
Oh, first, besides television spots, the first series in which I was involved was Ghost Hunters on the Sci-Fi Channel. You've heard of Ghost Hunters, right?
Once or twice, yeah.
It's still around in another incarnation, a couple of incarnations, actually, reincarnations. Yes, that began in 2004, spring of 2004. We began production on Ghost Hunters.
Nice.
And I knew the director, Jason Hawes, who he and I were friends, and so it was only natural that we, you know, that TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, would include their core members and go out on investigations.
Yeah. So what was the coolest investigation, or the one that kind of like you remember the most, you know, as far as those shows go? Or well, just specifically Ghost Hunters, like what was the coolest investigation you went on with that show?
I suppose that would be in Altoona, Pennsylvania, with Brenda and all that. We were like, her house was haunted, and we had to, well, we hoped to help her, if not rescue her, at least, you know, understand the nature of her haunting. I think we were successful in that. I think that one was very, very interesting. We had general paranormal phenomena, which would happen sometimes naturally. Had good experiences, not so favorable, but that I was able to do the blessing of the house, even though I am not an ordained minister. I approach that with all sincerity, and it was to calm things in the house. So our intent was to set it up that only good could enter that house, nothing evil. You know, put a barrier up around it, a metaphysical barrier, and through a blessing, or holy Christian blessing. So I think that was very interesting, because things were happening as we were doing the blessing. It's like some force didn't want us to continue. As you say, go to some interesting places. There are probably a few stories I'm not thinking of right now that, oh, I should have told him this one or that one.
Right.
Good my times with TAPS.
Yeah. Have you been on other TV shows as well?
Yes, I was on through. We can name networks, Ken.
You name whatever, man. It's just us on Facebook. It doesn't matter.
Yes, now. On the Travel Channel, they had a show called The Haunted. And the premise of The Haunted was how animals react to paranormal phenomena.
Oh, wow.
And the animal, pets in the house or whatever. And that was fascinating. I was on 5 episodes of The Haunted. Always good experiences. Nothing was contrived or faked. Everything was genuine. It was basically the producers going around with camcorders rather than on Ghost, where they set up big television cameras, and some had big shouldered cameras, but this was just going around with camcorders and documenting what was happening. So I was having 5 episodes of that.
Well, I want to know about that. Like,
know.
do you think there's any correlation between animals and the paranormal? Did they sense things?
Oh yeah, they do. That's what sometimes alerted people to the haunting. You know, like their dog or cat, or in one case, the horse was reacting, agitated violently to something that was in the house that people didn't see. Then the homeowner started seeing things, and so that's when the investigative team got called in, and I was called in as the specialist, being a demonologist. But how fascinating! Animals see, and young children. Well, children are always young, but the real little ones, they see things that we know. I think we block that out or lose the ability.
Yeah. People say that that veil is kind of like slowly put up between us and something else as we get older. I do remember being younger and feeling like I almost had ESP or something. I'll tell you a quick story. One time I had my bike stolen, and I went home and I went to sleep, and I had a dream that it was in a dumpster, and I went back to the dumpster I had in my dream, and my bike was there. You know, so like, and that's a fact, man. That's a true story. So like, maybe it's true. Maybe it's true that we have kind of this disconnect as we get older, and maybe
it's like a third eye that we have that enables us to see things, and then we just get involved in the day-to-day business of going about life, and we lose that. We don't think about it. And it becomes inconvenient. Some people are able to keep it. And then you get your psychics and people who channel.
Right. Yeah.
I still have that sometimes, but I can't control it. I don't know when I'm going to get a premonition or something. And I've had dreams that came true. Way beyond coincidence. Yeah. So I dealt with animals reacting to influences. And one of the most interesting things was we were in El Dorado, Texas. That's how they pronounce it, El Dorado. And the dog was reacting. They had a little, like a toy chihuahua.
Right.
Named Pongo. And he was losing his hair. He thought mange or something. But then the homeowners, the owners of Pongo, started to get the same symptoms. And the lady of the house, she got a cross appear on her head, like a welt. And so it's like almost like they caught this from the dog, not mange, but the paranormal influence. And all kinds of things were happening there. They found on their house, scrawled on their house, somebody had written "Leave or Die," and that just appeared one morning. They don't know how that got there. And so we were going around the house performing a blessing, I and the team, Christian-oriented blessing of the house. When we came back in, the little dog started to growl and shiver. Well, that's what you want to do, but he was like growling and looking around. And we were recording at the time, had a digital audio recorder. When we played back that recording, you hear the dog growling, Pongo's growling, and then you hear this deep male tone voice says, it's mocking the dogs. It's imitating the animal. It starts going, "Rrr, rrr," and it goes, the voice said, bite me, rrr. Now, unfortunately, they didn't incorporate that into the episode. They didn't use that in the show. I don't know why not, but we got plenty of activity. That was the good thing about being in that television show, that series, because they would come with their own recording equipment, and what we might have missed, the film crew would have. And you'd have a record of the investigation. It was edited, but you'd have documentation. So 5 episodes of The Haunted, a few other shows. I was on an episode of Finding Bigfoot.
What were you doing on Finding Bigfoot?
Many people know I was a Bigfoot researcher 10 years ago. I was a Bigfoot researcher, and there was a Sasquatch or Bigfoot for some cryptid that was evident in Cumberland, Rhode Island, in North County, Rhode Island. And people saw it. We found evidence of it, too much to just dismiss. It was fascinating at the time. I never saw the creature, but I heard it. I don't know what else it could have been. I heard it stomping and approaching us. That was terror. I've been in some hairy situations in my paranormal research and investigation, but nothing was as scary as the Bigfoot. Something
Yeah.
about it. It's so physical, you know, something about this. I think it's disturbing because it's so human-like. To see this giant hairy thing coming out of the woods would have been, I don't know if I could have stood my ground.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
we
there's
could've.
something primal in us. Yeah, I think there's something that's just kind of like inside of us that are afraid of those things because you know, no matter how you look at it, we had a war with Neanderthals, you know, 35,000 years ago, a legit war, and I think that that fear is still in us. I think that that fear of this big hairy thing that lives in the woods is you know, something we can still feel.
Yeah,
But
this troglodytic creature coming out of the woods and like being us, but not quite us. You know, if it's a panther or a bear, yeah, that's something to avoid, but it's also something you can combat and you can understand. When it's like us, but not quite us, that's more threatening. I think it projects some kind of fear. There's something very frightening about Bigfoot. You know, it's usually.
Yeah.
But actually, we isolated it enough to know that there were two rogue, or strongly suspect there were two rogue males in that vicinity who were wandering around. They were seen numerous times. I was never fortunate enough to see it, actually, just heard it. But we did have an eyewitness on the team who had seen these things, and her story was very consistent.
Yeah. So you were on another TV show, Ghost Adventures, right?
Yes, Ghost Adventures. I've been on 2 episodes of Ghost Adventures.
Oh, you've been on 2 of them?
Well, yeah, we're not supposed to say everything, are we? You know. Well, production, of course, with the pandemic has been delayed, but you should be seeing something of me on that. But yes, there's no reason not to disclose this because I was on an episode of Ghost Adventures that actually became their Halloween episode.
Yeah.
2019, yeah, it was, and that took place at the Conjuring House.
Yeah, that takes us to where you and I met. Like we met because of
that's what brought us together.
Yeah, that's how we met. So yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to basically live at the Conjuring House for 6 months, man, and it was really cool. And during that, I got to meet you, I got to meet your brother, I got to meet Andrea, all of her family. Man, I've absolutely met everyone associated with the Conjuring House, which has been absolutely amazing. And I got to tell you, Carl, you're one of the most fascinating people I've ever met, as far as like in general, anybody I've ever met. And you have a lot of crazy background. You've done a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to run for public office at this point. You know,
yeah.
They can bring out too many things. You know.
Yeah. But man, you took
Bigfoot. Look at him. He's crazy.
He's crazy. Yeah. So what's really cool though is you were able to take a lot of that information and bring it back to the Conjuring House recently. So you and I have worked in the Conjuring House recently together. Let's talk a little bit about that, man. Like,
you mean what we did apart from the television cameras?
Well, you know, that might be secret. At least the that one thing that we did. You know,
I had a feeling. Yeah.
But so yeah, how did you feel coming back to the Conjuring House after all those years?
Oh my, you know, that really was an experience. Usually I feel a little detached when I'm in a paranormal investigation, especially if it's anything televised. You know, you're there to do something, you know, make the best of it. It's always interesting, sometimes fascinating. But coming back to the house, you know, Round Top Farm, it was so nostalgic because so little has changed there from the time the parents had stewardship of that house.
How much of a gap was that? Like, how many years has it been?
Well, I have to kind of reveal my age to say that, don't I? It was 46 years since I first came to that house. And I'd been there a couple of times when there was a different owner there, you know, like maybe 3 other times since the parents. But nothing had changed, or very little has changed there as far as furnishings, the way the house is arranged. The house was not all redone. It was nostalgic. I said, boy, I know what that felt like first coming here. You know? And it was just a delight to see that, you know, like a couple of tables have been moved, but to see it so similar to what it had been. The previous owners had kept it up as it had been, and there's no reason to change it. Then when Corey and Jen Heinzen took on the house, they kept it the same. That way you don't have to do a lot of sweeping and vacuuming, you know, just keep it regular. They keep it good though. And it's a struggle just to heat that house. And the house was built, what was that, 1732? Anybody want to correct me on that?
4, I believe.
I was just going to say 17. You say 1734. Somebody else said 1736. You know,
it's somewhere in there. 1730 something.
Yeah. Oh, it's been there for a while. That, 100 years after Roger Williams founded Providence. I mean, it's been there for some time. It's had a lot of time to absorb memories. So when I went back to this house, one thing that occurred, and this was only last summer, last July of 2019, there's a mirror which is still in place in the center room. It has been a dining room before, now it's a parlor. And there's a mirror hanging up there, and I think it's the same mirror that was there when I first came there. I looked into that mirror, and I saw myself as I appeared 46 years before. I'm not prone to imaginings. I like to think I'm not. I looked into that mirror. I was totally aware of what was happening, and I saw myself with long hair, looking much younger, looking better, and saw myself as that age when I first came there. I had a chance to blink and look away and say, am I seeing this? And the image was moving as I was, but it was me that much younger, that long ago. I knew if I called somebody over and say, you got to see this, that either they wouldn't say it or it would have changed by then. So I was able to, it must have been a full 90 seconds or so. I was looking at myself as I used to look. I just memorized it so I could tell people.
So what do you think caused that? Like what can make that happen, you think? A
time displacement. That's something endemic to that house, that people have time shifts there. Mirrors are weird anyway, but something captured my image and imprinted it, but it melded with my image of modern day. So here was I in 2019, and there I was in 1973, and the two images, because it was moving with me, as I said. So it was me, but it was me younger. What a bummer it was when I looked in another mirror. So this ain't lasting.
Yeah.
It made a contrast. But that was just fascinating because I didn't expect anything overtly paranormal to happen that day, and there it did. And other people have had time shifts. Andrea has had some of those experiences there with time shifts. But I was thinking of Carolyn. Seemed to be looking back in time. There are people dressed in clothing of the 18th century, and they had pewter tankards. She observed this for like a brief period, and the two men seated at a table turned and looked at Carolyn. So to them, Carolyn was the ghost. There were probably people in the 18th century, I should say, in the 18th century that actually saw somebody from the 20th century. Strange time displacement.
Yeah, I lived there for a long time. I never had that happen, but I did lose track of time while I was in there. I don't really know how to explain it other than like days would turn into weeks like that. Like it was weird. I don't know how to explain it. Like you didn't have any idea of what time it was. I don't know really how to tell you, but there is something going on in that house. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if it's haunted, cursed, or what the hell it is, man, but there is definitely something going on. What kind of other experiences have you actually had in the house that you'd like to talk about?
Touch, my shoulder, arm, touch, a little push here and there. Enough to notice it. Sudden feeling that I wasn't alone. And when the Ghost Adventures team was there, I felt an urge to continue an experiment that I had started 46 years before. I always felt when I was in that house that something wanted to speak through me. Now, the house wanted to talk. And for some reason, it felt something, some simpatico with me, the house I'm talking about, or whatever is there. And I told the Ghost Adventures team, I felt this all these years ago. I almost let it happen. I want the house to say what it has to say. I wanted to speak through me. And I'm just going to let it happen. That probably this is irresponsible. The Ghost Adventures team, whatever's going to happen, let it happen. And I said, I probably should leave now. And Zach Bagan said, Carl, please don't go. Let this speak through you. Okay, that's all I needed. Now, there was a scene in that episode, so first of the Harrisville farmhouse. And it looks like I'm totally taken over. in that and had no control. I could have gotten up and left at any time. But I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And there's this thunderstorm going on. You see lightning flashes out there, very dramatic. And so I allowed this. I said, yeah, you can speak through me. If something wants to speak through me, you can. I was just curiosity overrode caution at that time. And when I watched it, I didn't remember too much about it afterwards until I saw the episode. I'm saying, or something saying through me, don't go, don't leave. And I'm like, I thought it would say, like, get out, don't come back. You know, don't go, don't leave. Whether it was speaking just to me or all the people in the house, I don't know.
Do you feel like you have a connection with the house now? Like somehow like eternally connected some way?
When I walk into that house, I feel like I'm being embraced. Well, we used to hug, remember that once upon a time. But I feel like something wants me there, welcomes me back. You know, not to concentrate on just my experience there, but I do feel that it welcomes me, that I made a good impression on whatever's in that house, or the house itself as its personality. And yeah, I always do. I feel it knows I'm there. It's almost like a dog tail.
Yeah. So what do you think is there? Like what's the deal with the Conjuring house? What is there? Like what's causing all of this?
Now, what would be a classic cause of a haunting is, you know, there was some tragedy or tragedies that transpired in the house over those many years, and the house has now become evil and potent. I just feel that so many people have occupied that house, and it might be its position geographically, it might be what's under the soil, you know, heavy quartz deposits, and silicon, and the house is a battery. And it's absorbed memories. The memories are in the materials of the house, and I think it's accrued its own presence. I think the house is almost a living entity, and it's almost a life form in itself. I think that's what's happened. I think that's what creates the activity, and it lets us know sometimes. Yeah, I mean, people have died within that house. I'm sure people have been born in that house, but that's because it's so old. I don't think it's malevolent at all. And that's why I wasn't afraid to let it speak through me.
Right.
Happen. It just did.
Huh. Yeah, I've never had that feeling in the house, but I know what you mean. It doesn't feel evil in the house. It feels almost playful. I mean, I don't understand what's going on there. And I was there every day for almost 6 months, man, and I still don't have a clue. But there is definitely something happening there. But so where are you now? Like, where is your career going? What are you up to right now?
I want to legitimize demonology. Make it what do I want to say? I want to establish demonology as a science, as a legitimate study. You know, it's got a wild name, demonology, because we don't have scientific nomenclature to apply to these phenomena. But I want demonology to be something that people can, you know, benefit from, can study, can learn from. We call it demonology. That's inclusive of wicked. It's basically studying the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. So I want it to be a viable study, not just all superstition and even not all supernatural. Now, I am a member of Panorama Paranormal, and it's just a team of two. Elise Gianmarco Carlson, a historian, and myself, and we do cooperate with other teams, you know, and we consult others. But it's basically us as a study and research group or team. And I'm also involved with Duo Demonology with James Anito, and we are demonologists. That's through those two avenues I'm trying to really find solid ground for demonology. Maybe 10 years in the future, hopefully I'll be very involved in it then, but maybe 10 years in the future, that will be recognized as a legitimate study, maybe not even called demonology. Basically, study of spirits, sometimes convenient or wicked spirits.
Right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I wish you luck with that, man. I think you're on the right path. You're definitely you're working hard at it. I see you all the time on Facebook and all these other places trying to promote what you're doing, and I think it's pretty cool, man. You had a Facebook Live thing going with James for a while, didn't you?
Yes, because of quarantine, we wouldn't be setting a good example if we appeared like that. Besides, there's only so much distance you can put at the table anyway, unless you do like camera back and forth.
Yeah, yeah.
We're waiting for things to return to some sense of stability before we resume that. And of course we will. We will be doing that podcast on Facebook. You know,
Cool.
I can't look forward to that. It's lively because James is quite the talker. I can be when you uncork me, you know, and you know, we don't always agree on everything. James is more of a religious demonologist. I am not. I'm more of a pragmatic, secular demonologist. Not that I don't have a faith, but I also have a lot of questions too. So our interesting exchanges, and I think they're interesting, our point counterpoint approach, you know, what makes duodemonology, I think, inviting.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Where can people watch that when you guys start back up?
Okay, well, you just go to Facebook, which most of us do from time to time. And if you look at our page, we do have a Facebook page, not a website, but a page. You'll be able to find our show. It's broadcast through that. And we do it individually. I mean, you know, as our own thing. And we have a studio here and set up a table and we talk and discuss, sometimes even debate. Nice. And we write controversial topics. I mean, the audience or our viewers can write in and say, we'd like to see this or that topic approach. And that's where we get our ideas from, research. Nice.
Well, we have a couple questions and then we're going to finish up. We're almost at our hour point, but we have one from Marion. I'm going to slaughter her name. He's pronounced Luma. Do you think Native Americans and soldiers have anything to do with the haunting? So, yeah, do you think Native American stuff or soldiers or anything has anything to do with what's going on there?
You mean specifically at the Conjuring House?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I do, because this was after the 7-mile enclosure of what was Rhode Island and, you know, and southeastern Massachusetts. Once you got beyond that, I'm talking about basically colonial times. It was open and inhabited by savages and soldiers marshaling the savages, and you know, hostilities were escalating as we got closer to the Revolutionary War. Oh yeah, sure. I think there's soldier present because the parents, well, certainly the daughters and Carolyn said they saw a Revolutionary War soldier there, and I believe that something like that has been seen there. Native Americans being a very spiritual people, and they're being basically driven away from their native land, and escalation and the populace increases. I think that's a very strong influence there. Colonial American militia and army and the Native Americans. And I think they're still battling for their stronghold, the Native American influence there, even though they're long passed away. And I think they're embedded there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from what I was told, there were little gun ports in the top of the house that faced out over the lawn out back, and they basically used that to fire at the Native Americans as they were approaching the house. So there has to be some kind of energy left over just from that.
One could speculate about what kind of skirmishes went on there that were actually, you know, lives taken, you know, like Indians killed there, Native Americans. You know. It is thought that there are, 7 soldiers buried on the property. Some people say the walls of the house, maybe the stone wall outside. We were probing for that one day. I don't know. Makes for a nice story. I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I would too, but I don't know. You know, it's something that we're going to have to keep researching, keep checking out, and I don't know. It's going to be a story that I don't know if it'll ever end. You know, I don't know if
the bodies of the soldiers are uncovered. I won't say recovered. I'll say uncovered. I said, holy smokes, it was real after all. I think it's unquestionable, really, that Native American influence and militia influence.
Someone named Claudia Botello, maybe. She wants to know if you've ever picked up the name Hal at the house, Hal.
I haven't. At another place, Old Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, somebody got the name Hal on a ghost box, and then a psychic person on another occasion that there was a Hal there. But at the Conjuring House, I have not personally.
I don't remember it. At least when I was there, I haven't heard it either. If anyone else has any questions, this is your time to ask some questions because we're just about ready to sign off. But yeah, this has been really cool, man. I always enjoy talking to you, Carl. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we get off of here?
Are you going to say anything about the seance that happened at, well, which seance that happened at the Conjuring House?
No, it never happened. It never happened.
No.
No, but you know, every time you do come to the house, there's always a little bit more activity. It seems like, oh, we seem to have lost my my buddy Carl. I don't know what happened, but anyway, that's okay. We were basically done anyway. So yeah, this is Bill Brock with Operation Lockdown, and be sure to join us every day at 12 o'clock, and I'll have a different guest on, and we'll be trying to entertain you during this crazy freaking lockdown. So until then, you guys have a great day.